out there that don't know anything about the project, tell us about the Flamingo project and what you ladies do and men do, etc., etc.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Anje, for having me. It's a great honor having this chat with you. I just love it. I've heard about you so many times, and of course, very familiar with your product. So, obviously, that many people out there obviously don't know who I am. So I'm Liana Roodt, and I'm a breast and endocrine surgeon in Cape Town. Well, general surgeon, but with a special interest in breast and endocrine surgery. I have a private practice in Somerset West, as well as in Cape Town, and then I'm also affiliated with Groote Schuur Hospital and UCT. Where I still work at least twice a week, doing some teaching and training. And that was also the birth ground for Project Flamingo a decade ago. I can't believe it's been 10 years. 10 years of Project Flamingo. So, and Project Flamingo really started was really born out of frustration, being a doctor in the public healthcare system, witnessing just the tremendous challenges our patients face within the system to access care timely, and noticing how long particularly our cancer patients have to wait for their cancer operations. Thinking that there must be a way that we can actually try and help solve this problem instead of just being frustrated by it and complaining about it. And hence the birth of what we call catch-up surgery lists, where we operate on these patients on Saturdays or public holidays when many theatres in the public healthcare system stands open, to actually then do these operations to reduce the waiting time from diagnosis to actual intervention. And the doctors that work with me all volunteer their time and their skill, which is amazing. So our main cost then lies with covering the theatre consumables and the cost of the nursing staff. But, we've done more than 800 of these surgeries over the last 10 years, and would like to believe that we've actually made a real difference in trying to improve the system in our little corner of it as much as we can.
Yeah. Wow, Liana, because think about it, 800 surgeries is 800 patients, it's 800 families. It's the ripple effect of that is quite something if you think about it.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I ask you a question? So when you talk about catch-up lists and public health care, etc., is that unique to South Africa, or is it something that occurs, let's say, globally in any, like the NHS or any public healthcare system, or is it this particularly acute here in South Africa?
I think, unfortunately, I think it's not a problem that's unique to South Africa. And I think we tend to, as South Africans, there's a lot of negativity in our political ether. So we tend to make it a uniquely South African problem, but it is in fact not. The NHS in the UK struggle with the exact same challenges, not necessarily with cancer operations, but even with cancer operations, but with many of their elective procedures like hip replacements or knee replacements. I mean, they face similar challenges to us. I think what makes it more acute in the South African setting is the fact that we've got a very prominent private healthcare leg of our medical system, and then we've got this very large public healthcare system, and the disparity between the two is just so stark that the challenges becomes so much more noticeable. That being said, I think we are, yes, they are facing similar challenges elsewhere, but I think just because of the pure quantity of patients that's dependent on our public healthcare system, the challenge here is I think slightly more acute and dire. And that, of course, is many people's main concern or worry when we start talking about national health insurance, etc. Yeah.
So I guess you're in like many doctors, you're in that position where you straddle both worlds in a sense, because you're obviously spending time at Groote Schuur. You also have a private practice. And, there's even things like provincial differences, Western Cape versus Gauteng. I mean, I know from from Zebra's experience, there are these differences depending, sadly for the patient, literally just depending on your geography, where you land up.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit, let's address the elephant in the room, okay? And I think let's just clarify. I mean, obviously you're speaking on your personal capacity. You're not speaking on behalf of Groote Schuur. You're not speaking on behalf of Project Flamingo even. You speak Dr. Roodt, okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I mean, we all have views on this, including me, and I'm interested to know, where does the NHI sit for you? Because on a moral and an ethical level, I find it appealing. I'll be honest. It makes sense to me that everyone gets access to equitable healthcare. I mean, no one should die in a hospital because they don't have the money to pay for good healthcare. I do have an issue with that, but the devil is not even in the detail. The devil is in how on earth is this going to happen?
Yeah. Well, Sanjay, I think you just said it perfectly. So for me, philosophically and ethically, I am 100% for a national health insurance, because I mean that is what Project Flamingo is about. It's about equitable and timely treatment that's available to everybody.
Yes.
And I think if you are a physician, that is primarily why you entered medicine, with rare exception, is that you want to be a doctor that practice medicine in an evidence-based and a timely fashion. But I think what makes one wary is once you've been in the public healthcare system for a long period of time, you're very, very aware of the massive challenges that's being faced by that system. And the reality is that we haven't covered ourselves in glory in terms of how resources are managed, how resources are allocated and distributed. Unfortunately, in South Africa, I think corruption has become a swear word that we use every day. There is news of more and more of that happening, and to think of this utterly important structure that now needs to go into this pool of the unknown, that there's no experience in managing it. And if a country like the UK struggles to make a national health system work properly, what are we up for? What are we in for? And I think that's where people really starts getting nervous. It's not, if you have honest conversations with many doctors, it's like they don't want to leave because they fear a massive cut in their income. Fair enough, there may be a cut in income, but to be quite honest, I would be happy to take a cut in income if I don't have to cover all my own costs. The cost of running a private practice is massive to keep the doors open, the stress of having that. So I would gladly then earn less but not have that
stress in your life.
That stress. But the reason why people feel anxious and talk about leaving is they want to practice first world medicine, because our medical education is first world class. I mean, we know what we're supposed to do, and there is nothing more frustrating than to know what a patient needs and be unable to offer it to them.
I can imagine.
It's incredibly frustrating, and it leads to something that's actually been quite well described now. It's this concept of moral injury, which is it's more than burnout. It relates to burnout, and it can feel like burnout and look like burnout. But really, what it is, it's like an assassination of your moral standards. Sorry,
Yes.
you know what needs to happen, you know what's right, but you're unable to offer it due to a system that surrounds you.
I think that must be utterly demoralizing. I can totally imagine. It's like a crushing defeat, so to speak, because you're so close yet so far.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, in principle, I think a bigger majority than you would think would actually support the philosophy behind the NHS or the NHI. But the questions that everybody is, how can we assure that, there will be, and there's no clarity yet. Would it be managed on national level? Would it be managed on provincial level?
Yeah.
How's the structuring going to work? How's the resource allocation going to work? Can we ensure that our quality of care that we provide is in fact going to improve, and not the other way around, where we're actually going to take a few steps back from where we're at the moment? Will we still be able to provide world-class training for our medical professionals?
Those are big, hairy questions. Those are like, that's not, we're not talking about, what color scrub should I wear tomorrow? That's really, that cuts to the core of what am I doing with my life? And I think that was my next question. When you talk about thinking about leaving, I presume you're talking about doctors that are thinking about leaving the profession or leaving the country. What do you mean when you say that?
Well, both. I mean, I think I find it incredibly depressing, but out of my group of colleagues that qualified, my undergrad with me, so my MBCHB, I don't think I'm exaggerating if I say that nearly half of our class is practicing overseas and is not in South Africa anymore. And just over the last 2 years, I have lost so many of my peers that specialized with me to programs overseas, where they, and very often doctors are married to doctors, so when one leaves, actually, so it's one family, it's two professionals that leaves, and this massive loss of expertise. It's a loss of passion that we honestly can't afford, and that worries me, and I'm saddened by it.
No, I mean, that is enough to keep any of us up at night, for sure. I mean, it's without a functioning healthcare system, I mean, there's no nation on this earth that can exist.
Yes.
It's interesting you say that, though, because if we put, I mean, I know the debate is how the country's going to afford the NHI, like literally who's going to write that check, okay? And that's a different debate. I mean, what you're actually saying is, it's assuming the check can be written, the question is actually how is it going to be implemented on like a ground zero basis? And I suppose, given the various scandals that have come out of this whole COVID experience, people aren't exactly feeling very confident that the people at the helm are going to implement. Which again, that feeds into every doctor's psyche. If you're not feeling confident in your job, that's again, like I said, that really speaks to the mental side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's all about the severe uncertainty, I think, about the implementation. And no mistake, the demons too. It's a walk in the park dealing with medical aids. So it's what and by no means do I say that system is better at all. I think there's massive flaws in both. And if there is the insight and the wisdom for these two systems to actually learn from one another, and take from each other's strengths, there may be, you know, maybe you can make magic. Whether that realistically can happen, I don't know. My sense would be that, you know, I think that public-private partnerships, especially in the beginning phases, would be crucial, not just for resource sharing, but also for knowledge sharing. So how, you know, billing patients, getting contributions, all of those things.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah, that would be key. And hopefully the insight would be there to do it. And I know there's been test sites that's been launched, but if I could get my wish, I would hope that before the bill is blatantly like implemented, that there would be proper large test centers, that there is a gradual sort of teething phase, and things can be ironed out before we crash and burn an already extremely fertile healthcare system.
A phased-in approach would make sense. Tell me, if my memory serves, why do I think a few years ago there was a debate around discovery somehow being involved, or is that just am I mentioning stuff?
No, you're not. I think there's been various debates over the last few years about, you know, different medical aids sort of trying to be involved, which, you know, in principle, I don't think that it's a bad thing. I think just in last week's paper, there was quite a prominent announcement made of, I think it was Momentum, that made a very, very interesting strategic move in aligning with some of the what is it called, the unions, to, you know, provide medical aid at, you know, discounted rates for union members. These union members again have, you know, quite a bit of say when it comes to potentially decisions that should be made around the national health insurance plan. You know, so many consider that a very strategic plan, where they sort of positioning themselves potentially
strategically.
Yes, strategically for a future that seems to be unavoidable at the moment. So it would be very interesting to see how this play out, and I can only hope and pray that it will all play out with integrity, and ultimately with the people that we are here to serve, which is the patients, right? You know, I always find it so ironic that sometimes even in my practice, I feel like 80% of what I'm busy with has got nothing to do with being a doctor, and and it's, you know, and it's sad and it's wrong, and, you know, that's why patients suffer, and that's why patient care suffers.
Yep. So Liana, just, I mean, on this whole NHI, it sounds like right now it's still absolutely going to happen. I mean, it's been like unequivocal for years. There's an irony to that, but right now that's still the status quo, right? It's definitely going to happen.
It's very much the wheels are turning, and it's turning faster than I think a lot of us thought it would. So
interesting. Hence that actually is going to be announced, fait accompli, and well, off you go, Dr. Roodt. Sure.
Yes, exactly. So let's hope it's not change for the sake of change, but really change for the sake of betterment, and it's made in, you know, with integrity. That's all I can say. I mean, that is what it's gonna ask of everybody that's involved, and maybe a snowball's hope, but
a big ask, all things considered. Given where our suspended health minister is right now, that is really a big ask. So Liana, tell me then, so is there consultation with the doctors on all of this? Like does the government like sit you guys down and say, let's talk about the NHI, or do you also have to work through this body and that body, or like how much consulting actually goes on with this stuff?
Yeah, it's a very It's very interesting. Apparently, there are consultations, but no,
Okay.
but who knows? It's certainly not. No, yeah, there is definitely consultation with certain groups and with certain individuals. I think most of us would have liked it to be much more transparent than what it is at the moment. Everybody is playing a guessing game. And I think, the question is always, who are you asking? Are you talking to paper pushers and to the bureaucracy? And no offense, those papers, some of our hospital management administrators, people sitting in our provincial health departments, they do great work and they do the best they can. But the truth is that many of them they've completely lost touch with reality of what is going on in the hospital corridors. And, it's when you lose touch with the patients, the actual challenges that they face, getting them through their doors, getting the test done, getting the nitty gritty of a patient's journey. It's very easy to sign off a piece of paper. It's very easy to draw up a new protocol. It's very easy to, so my question is always, I'm glad you're talking to someone, but who are you talking to? And, how in touch with that?
Yeah, I hear you, because I think in my head I just kind of assumed, and here we go, let's not assume anything, right? I would have thought it would be really far-reaching, kind of, within every province, like you guys would have been through the ringer already, like multiple consultations.
No, one would have hoped, but if it's happening, it's certainly not
Within your frame of
widely known or widely accessible to actually join those conversations. But yeah, it is happening.
Would you dare put a time frame on it, or is that just it's?
I would be very careful to put a time frame on it, but it kind of like we had this out of the blue announcements, is particularly over the last 2 years, and for me, I found it incredibly surprising during COVID. Where we're like, don't we have bigger problems to solve? Kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think there's a clear intent on it now. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about it and see things shift fairly quickly over the next 2 to 3 years.
Sure. And I suppose you've thought about it in the context of not only Liana, but also your patients with these catch-up lists, so to speak. I mean, obviously you want things to happen more speedily. You want better products and facilities available, etc., etc. It must be pretty daunting, because you just really don't know if you're going to be worse off or better off.
Yes, and I think there's the potential, and that is what we're hoping that, hopefully maybe this will unlock resources, maybe this will unblock access to healthcare. But if it's poorly executed, it will do the exact opposite. And that must be prevented at all costs, because we cannot afford, we are, and I think in the Western Cape, we are extremely lucky and we are still very protected. But the healthcare system in many parts of this country is on its knees, and it cannot take another knock. It really cannot.
Especially, like I said earlier, if that check is going to be written, my goodness, we probably only have one shot at it.
Yes. No, we really do. There is no do over here. There is no do over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Goodness. So where does this leave you feeling? Because I read an article and then I was horrified, because when I actually looked at the date, it was written like 6-7 years ago. But at the time, it was a survey done, I think it was by News 24, and it said 45% of the doctors that had been interviewed, or the respondents in this survey, felt confident about the future of South Africa's healthcare system over the next 5 years. And I thought to myself, okay, those 5 years have now come and gone. I wonder, 45% confidence levels. I wonder where the confidence levels are sitting now in terms of 5 years from now. But confidence, I guess, confidence is an emotion, and you know, we're all human. We ride the waves of, you know, the ups and the downs. But where would you say your confidence level is right now in terms of healthcare? And let's put private and public in one bundle for this question, because the NHI is going to affect both equally, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, where does that leave you in terms of your confidence levels?
Well, I think my confidence, if I think, is that I have great confidence in our medical education system. I still think we train exceptional doctors, and I have tremendous confidence in my colleagues, in my peers, in my seniors. I have no doubt that we have some of the most capable, medical professionals in this country. So in that regard, my confidence level has not been shaken, and perhaps it's even increased, because I think the people that's still here, that's putting their heads down and doing the work, have shown so much resilience. They've shown so much innovation. They want to be here, and they really believe that we can make this, our little corner of a system. We can improve it. We can make it better. So in that regard, I am positive, and I will remain positive. The lack of confidence, and I think the fear factor, comes in when you think about systematic management that you have no control over, where you lack. If resources get cut to a degree where I cannot actually do my job, what will happen then? Witnessing patients' agony or frustration, that's when I get fearful.
Yeah.
In that regard, unfortunately, I have to say that I'm quite uncertain as to where we stand, and I'm an eternal optimist, and I keep hoping we are going to crack this, and hopefully we'll do. But it's not straightforward circumstances. It really isn't.
No, it's not for sissies. That's for sure. No. I mean, a couple of months back, and I won't mention the hospital, but I mean, literally, there was no water. And when this anaesthetist was telling me what they were enduring, and it wasn't just like a day or two, it was like, the last 5-6 days we haven't had water. And I mean, that's, that shakes any person. That shakes any person, let alone the poor doctors that are working under those circumstances, and for sure those patients. I mean,
and I think what people sometimes forget is that, especially in the public healthcare system, is that when people are sad and they're angry and they hurt and they need to vent, they need a face to actually direct that anger to. And it's not the Minister of Health. It's not the bureaucrat sitting wherever. It is the doctor or the nurse that's standing right in front of them, and who really may. Yes, there are also many healthcare professionals out there that act in a less than desirable fashion, and that should be reprimanded and that should be held accountable. But in general, I mean, most people are actually trying their best, and they are just surrounded by a really shitty infrastructure, So it's hard. I think it's hard for people.
I've been reading quite a lot about that, and it's certainly COVID has aggravated that, and I mean, doctors are really having to endure so much more than was previously. Yes, you had problems like there's no water, there's no electricity, or there's not enough beds, but now there is. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Like, the patients are also projecting their emotions, like, demonstrably against the people trying to care for them.
So I mean, a simple example, let's say with the, and it is already to a degree in place in our public healthcare system, where certain hospitals have certain drainage areas, right? So in Cape Town, there's certain suburbs and certain areas that has to go to Groote Schuur Hospital, and then there's an area that needs to go to Tygerberg Hospital. Now, with certain, and there are certain hospital administrators, and I'm not implying any of these two hospitals, let's use other examples, but there would be certain hospital administrators that is absolutely draconian about which patients can access the hospital or not. So a patient, for instance, with a lump in the breast will show up at hospital A and will be turned, because she can't get to hospital B, and she will be simply turned around with a massive tumor in her breast and say, this is not your hospital, go stand in the queue in the other hospital. Or like, you know, so there's this, and who does that person get angry with? It's like, not it's not the hospital administrator, not the whatever, it is the doctor or the nurse that is obliged, that doesn't have a choice, that has to turn them around and show them a way and can't help. And that scares me when I think like, oh, I hope those kind of problems, you know, that sort of access that people, this should make healthcare more accessible to people, not block them further, not because that's just going to lead to more you know, anger, you know, all of it.
Yes. Oh goodness, yeah, no, Liana, you've that's exactly it, right? Where it's a box ticker of sorts, and you happen to live across the road, but potentially not on the right side of the road for X hospital, and now you're obliged to go to Y.
Yes, yeah.
So arbitrary, and
yes.
it doesn't leave, and of course that would enrage any patient, right?
Yes, I mean, so, and it's just, seeking help and accessing help should be easy.
Yeah. So it's very interesting you say that, because I read an article and I was actually reading it to get their stance on the NHI. It was something rural advocacy, something like that. Obviously doing a lot of doctors doing a lot of work in more rural areas. And the guy who they were quoting in the article was saying that the biggest thing is that because diagnostics, especially in the public domain, right, because exactly this, people aren't getting the healthcare, they're not diagnosing early enough, they're not understanding the status of their health. Are they sick or are they healthy? Like a small question like that, because you literally can't get to a clinic or a hospital. That's where public health is failing, because if people could actually diagnose what was wrong with them that much earlier, the overall burden on the healthcare system wouldn't be where it's at right now.
No,
so it really speaks to such an important thing, which I guess, or I certainly haven't thought long and hard enough about, is that it's access. It's literally access in the literal sense of the word. Not someone saying you're allowed. It's literally being able to get into a car or a bus, accepted in a hospital for treatment.
Absolutely. And we take it for granted, right? We
Yeah,
really do.
so
And it's not the reality. It's not the reality of the vast majority of South Africans.
Yeah.
And that it needs to be fixed.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because you put a different context on it for me, because it's really not even a question, like I said, of that particular example, that lady being allowed to go to another hospital. It's actually making it so that she can get in a car and get there.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Liana, I don't want to take up too much of your time, because I could just chat forever. We might have to do this again, because I don't think other topics here, we haven't even touched on them, but it's really good to hear from a ground zero perspective, because even, you know, as a medical device supplier, we're still a couple of steps removed. And I suppose that's what we need to remember, is that you guys are just, it's brutal. It's full on, and it's brutal, and you still need to get through every day. And I just want to say hats off from my side, because
make my corner better, and the next guy makes his corner better, and then hopefully slowly but surely we will create a better and more functional system. And you know, in all of this, hopefully not forget to also look after ourselves. I mean, with October, I always use it as an excuse. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but I get quite tired of all the pink. I know I love pink, but like, and I always use it as an excuse to also talk about self-care. And I think that's become imperative for healthcare practitioners, healthcare workers, especially over the last 18 months, is actually that heal thyself. It's been more, it's never been as important as now to also remember that, you know, in the midst of all of this, you know, to we're trying to heal systems, but you know, to look after each other and after ourselves, so that we can continue.
But I mean, isn't that the truth? You can't look after anyone else if you're not taking care of yourself.
For sure.
So I'm definitely going to have a chat to you again, because this has been way too much fun, way too interesting, and I wish you a fabulous Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we'll try to think of a different color for next year. Maybe urge you move away from the pink. No more of the stereotyping, please. There are other colors out there.
Yeah, pink is good. Pink is good. You know, all the different hues. It's like.
Okay, my dear. Thank
you so much. It was lovely chatting, and yeah, I hope we can do it again.
I'd love to. It's fascinating. It's really insightful, because when you're a few steps removed, you don't actually. I mean, you don't actually get to feel it, if you know what I mean. You feed it for us on a daily basis.
Thank you, Anja. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much. Okay, have a great day further.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.